it better be enough cash at the closing table.
Yeah.
So if they fuck it up, it doesn't matter. And whoever entrepreneur sustained $2 million and slept the most for the year, they win the prize.
That would be a super cool prize to get.
And
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, or good night, depending on what part of the world you're visiting us. I'm Daniel Marcos, your host of the Learning Out podcast, and I'm here with a really, really good friend. Ami, how are you? Ami Kassar.
great, nice to see you, buddy. How are you?
Good. We just saw each other in Philly a couple of days ago. It's great to see you again. So, where are you now? Where are you traveling from?
I'm actually in my basement today, which is rare for me. So
You're in your basement today. All right.
I don't spend much time here, especially since it's the exercise room. So
Interesting. All right. So let me do the proper introduction. Ami Kassar is the founder and CEO of MultiFunding, an author of the Growth Dilemma book, and he has really earned national reputation helping business owners get finance. Indeed, some months ago, I got a list of the companies that help the most other companies get financing in the U.S. government financing, small business financing, and Ami was number 3 behind like Bank of America. And Ami, give me the data right. You were number 3 or number 4 nationally behind Bank of America and who else?
if you compare us to the top 10 biggest banks in the country, we're right up there. So they have
That
a
was
gazillion dollars of assets, and we have zero.
That's super cool. All right. And that's on government loans.
That's
And
correct.
the thing that Ami is being very well known in the industry is fast growing firms. I work with a lot of scale ups that they need a lot of financing for growth. And instead of financing with venture capital or a lot of investors, they finance operations with their own capital, their own cash flow, and then they get financing with Ami to really be able to boost operation. Ami has been, over the last 20 years, he's been a thought leader and a thinker in how to finance the growth of your business. And he's been featured in many outlets like New York Times, Huffington Post, Wall Street Journal, Entrepreneur, Forbes, and the rest. And he's really someone that understands the financing part of the companies. All right. So, Ami, great pleasure to be with you. Let's start first on your book. And before we go to financing, what's the growth dilemma? What do you teach on your book?
Yeah, the growth dilemma, which has a bunch of tricks in it, and there are some new ones since it's published, but they all fall under the same theme.
That is?
And the theme is, in my mind, nothing is more important than a good night's sleep. Okay.
All right.
And part of sleep is how much risk you want to take.
Okay.
So fast growth or rapid growth comes with risk.
Yep.
Debt comes with risk.
Correct.
Equity comes with a different type of risk. So before encouraging, I encourage entrepreneurs to really get a sense of what their personal risk tolerance is, and that can change over time. And then to lead their life and build their business around their risk tolerance that makes them comfortable.
Okay.
So if there's somebody, I'm making it up, running a $3 million business, making $500,000 a year, and they're very comfortable, it gives them more than enough, and they're ready to save. And to grow, they'd really have to take on a lot of debt and a lot of risk. And if that debt and risk is going to cause them so much anxiety, then just keep doing what you're doing. It's okay.
So when people think about a loan, they think about risk, right?
Right.
Why that risk sometimes is better than getting an investor? What's the difference of a loan risk or an investment risk?
So you have to, first of all, in the general rule, if you take on an investor, you just got married or got married again, and divorce is expensive. Okay.
Okay.
And whether you like it or not, that investor and whether they're minority or majority and their interests are at the table with you for the rest of your business.
Right.
And it's not totally your show anymore, whether you like it or not. That doesn't mean that sometimes it's not the smart thing to do. Okay. If you take on debt, you're on the hook to pay it back. It's other people's money, but you're responsible for it. And so a lot of it depends on how important control is to you. I spoke to a friend of mine at a wedding on Sunday night who sold out to a private equity fund about 7 years ago. And now it's his second bite of the apple. So one private equity got out.
Yep.
The next private equity got in.
Yep.
He's still there, but he's on the treadmill. And he's, whether he likes it or not, he's working for the man.
Yeah.
I don't say that in a sexist way, just this particular case, his boss is a man. I don't want to go work for the man. Okay. I don't, or the woman. I don't want to go work for the man or the woman unless I know that I got enough money at the closing table. So if they screw it up or I get really aggravated, it doesn't matter. He's stuck. So that's a different kind of risk that you have to think about.
Okay. So let me ask about SBA loans. You're an expert on SBA or government guarantee loans in the US. What's the difference of a typical bank and what's the typical rates that you're seeing today compared to a typical banking loan?
So again, there's different use cases, but let's talk generally. You're going to go buy a company. Okay. And the company does not involve real estate. So it's really largely an airball deal. It's largely a goodwill deal.
Yeah.
Okay. And your choice is to either finance it with an SBA loan or with a conventional loan. Here's the thing. The SBA loan is probably going to be 2 points more expensive. So you would say, one logical answer, and people, this is their initial visceral reaction, is why would I pay 11 if I can pay 9? But then you've got to slow down. The SBA loan, you're going to have 10 years to pay back. The conventional loan, you're going to have 5 years to pay back. The SBA loan, the lender's probably going to require 10% down, or nothing if it's an expansion loan. The conventional loan is going to be 20 or 30% down. So what I always say when you are evaluating financing options, whether it's equity versus debt or different types of debt instruments or whatever it is, slow down and take a breath. Don't rush. There are usually more than one ways to skin a cat. Understand what the options and alternatives are and the pros and cons are, and then decide whatever is best for you. Good financing strategy buys you flexibility. Good financing strategy, a good balance sheet looks like a playbook for a football game. And a playbook for a good football game has good offense and defense, and you're not going to win without both. So you want to, in my opinion, make financing choices that give you the most flexibility as you can going into the future. Because no matter how smart you are, sometimes SHIT is going to happen that you didn't think about or you didn't predict.
So what's that word, SK? What's the...
Shit.
Okay, that's the one. All right. I want to make sure it was not an acronym or someone in the banking life. Okay, so imagine you're talking to an entrepreneur, and the entrepreneur is discussing or exploring if they should get debt, they should get SBA debt, or they should get an investor. What's kind of the three decisions you have to do to decide what's right for you?
You have to, I think, decide how important control is to you.
Okay.
And you really have to, in my opinion, have a very thoughtful conversation with that investor and make sure that your visions for the future of your company and your values are aligned. Unfortunately, I've seen too many times where there's conflict between investors and the entrepreneur, or oftentimes there's conflict between entrepreneurial partners. So one case we're dealing with now, where two entrepreneurs started a food business and they've been co-packing for years,
Yep.
and it's time for their own facility. One of them is willing to personally guarantee, the other is not. Creates tension, creates problems. So these risk issues come up, even with an investor. Talking to them, if you're going to take on an investor, understanding their time horizon and what their expectations are and what their hopes and plans are, but also what they're going to do or how they're going to handle it when shit hits the fan, and it will hit the fan sometimes. What are the expectations or their processes or their philosophy if and when the company needs more cash? You have to think long and hard about this and not fall just for what I call the Shark Tank myth.
What is the Shark Tank?
The Shark Tank myth is this general theme that a great investor or a famous investor is going to is like the it's like nirvana, it's like the promised land. I can't tell details. We've bailed out a bunch of Shark Tank companies over the years,
Interesting.
and pretty much in every case, shortly after the transaction, Shark Tank and that entrepreneur just disappears into never land. Okay.
So
Everyone thinks
I've known a couple of entrepreneurs that on TV they close and they have an agreement, they shake hands, and then when they see the contracts on the back, they say, "I will never sign that contract." And they
correct. A lot of them fall apart. And when they happen, the shark isn't really there for them. And Kevin O'Leary's wine sucks, but that's a different story.
All right. All right. So you talk with a lot of entrepreneurs about the advantages and the disadvantages of venture capital. What do you think are the best advantages or the biggest disadvantages of venture capital compared to debt financing?
Daniel, it depends on your growth lane and your expectations. Okay. So a little bit of it is, what do you need money for? There are certain types of businesses where venture capital is appropriate. There are certain types of businesses where it will be just because there might be heavy in technology or speculative investment, where it's going to be many, many, many millions of dollars or even more before the company could even conceive of thinking about profitability. And if that's the model for the business you're trying to build, venture capital is probably appropriate. But you can choose a slower path. I think back about my story when I started MultiFunding and I bootstrapped. And many friends of mine or colleagues of mine who were also building in the lending space were going through multiple rounds of PE or multiple rounds of venture, and some went public. And sometimes I would walk into their offices in New York and San Francisco, and there'd be a couple hundred employees in there. And I would be like, not sure if I was going to make payroll tomorrow. Okay. And I would say to myself, what's wrong with me? Why am I choosing to torture myself like this? And I spent a long time living in that anxiety zone of, what the hell am I doing here? Ironically, many of them are now gone or bankrupt after wasting gazillions of dollars, and here I am, doing great. But sometimes the tortoise wins the race. But that's not the point. Trying to get comfortable with your risk tolerance, your growth plans, If you don't want to take equity and control is super important to you, don't do it. There's a way to do it. If you want to take on debt and grow through debt, do it responsibly. Okay. Debt can be evil. Debt is not always a clean and beautiful thing. And if you want to self-finance and don't want to deal with debt or don't want to deal with equity, go at your own pace.
So the safest will be you self-finance.
Not
Then the next will be
necessarily.
not necessarily.
There's not necessarily a safest.
Okay.
You could self-finance, but be in a type of industry that is so equity intensive or capital intensive that you're not going to make it without equity or debt or something.
Probably. Okay.
So you have to think about the type of business that you're trying to build or want to build and what the capital requirements of that business might be. But the goal, in my opinion, isn't like, that's why I know I get a lot of people angry at me. Okay. I'm not a fan of the Inc. 5000.
Why are you not a fan?
Because why are we celebrating top line growth as the metrics of success?
By the way, a lot of the companies, I've heard this, a lot of companies getting to the Inc. 5000, they disappear the next year or 2 years after.
Of all the several hundred companies we've funded, the ones that have gone bad, which is not many, half of them we met at the Inc. 5000.
So
Okay.
I've been in the Inc. 5000 4 years in a row, and I'm still alive.
Why do we celebrate that as a metrics of success? And we all do it, right?
Yeah.
And we got to go to the conference and put the badge, and it's like honor and this and that and the other. But is the top number one company that grew like 187,000%? Is that what we should aspire to?
It's pretty sexy, to be honest, I have to say. But yes, I get it. No, but I get it.
I agree with you that it's sexy.
Yeah.
And I don't want to diminish, I'm not meaning to diminish the idea of doing it. It's hard, right?
Yeah.
But people who just only embrace top line growth, which is really what rising to the top of that list encourages, without thinking about a lot of the fundamentals underneath it, can be a complete recipe for disaster.
I have a friend, colleague, and semi-competitor that he's putting an ad today online that he said, I've been in the 5,000 like with 4 companies. 3 of them are gone. They just have one that's still alive. The other 3 are bankrupt already. And he's
I got to be careful because I'm getting people mad at me about this stuff.
I'm very proud I've been in this for 4 years, but I get it.
Especially now I'm the president of the EO Philly chapter. I got to be extra careful, I guess. But I posted in the Inc. 5000 in the EO message boards a couple of days ago.
Entrepreneurs that live the best at night.
Yeah, so you have to pick a minimum. You have to have a minimum of $2 million revenue or something to get in, and then you give a sleep app, and whoever entrepreneur sustained $2 million and slept the most for the year, they win the prize.
That would be a super cool prize to get.
And it sounds like kind of dumb and snarky, and
it's true.
It is kind of snarky and dumb, and I angry at the Inc. guys for other reasons, but but it's true.
So let me change the question here. You and I saw each other in Philly. We were at the coaches training in Philadelphia, and before I went to Harvard CEO Summit with Vern. And Vern, in both events, talk about it sounds weird at the beginning, but said you need to PE your company. And PE is about private equity. And usually when you get private equity investor buying a piece of your company, the first thing they do is they get highly leveraged and they get a lot of debt into the company to be able to have the fast growth and be able to have more return on assets. And Vern said you should not sell it and then the private equity is the one that makes the business. You should highly leverage your business today and with growth. And even at today's rate, you're getting a rate. What's the SBA today? 8%, 9%?
No,
What is
higher, like
higher than
11.
that? What is the rate today of a SBA loan?
Fully unsecured, so not backed by real estate. It's about 11 and a quarter to.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So 11%. Usually a VC fund or a private equity, they're expecting returns of 30, 40% at least. So if you could finance your own growth at 11 instead of 30 or 40, should be good. So tell me about this. Like, should you
Well,
PE your own firm?
let's
What is
break
that?
it down a little bit. Okay.
Please.
What I advise people if they're thinking about selling to PE, am I allowed to curse on here, Daniel?
You already did, so I'm okay.
Okay, it's gonna get worse. Okay. Is it better be enough cash at the closing table
Yeah.
so if they fuck it up, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. I always say the same thing.
Okay. And time again, I wish there was a book out there about the companies PE have destroyed. And there are a lot of them. I have a friend who sold out to PE like 10 or 12 years ago. I'm not crying for him. He got enough at the closing table. Okay. But PE bought out 60% of his firm. The day they closed, there were 40 people on the payroll. 30 days later, there were 120 people on the payroll. 4 years, 364 days later, they were bankrupt.
Oh.
And there are plenty of stories like that.
So by the way, does anyone following up all that data from private equity, like Josh Lerner?
No, it's a great book. Will you write it for me? Because I don't have time.
I would love to write it, but is the data available somewhere? I imagine
I don't know. You'd really,
have the data.
it would be hard to do. I don't quite know how you do it, but
So I
there's
don't know if you know Josh Lerner. There's a guy. He's from NYU, I think. He's a professor of NYU or one of the Northeast universities, and he has this track data of venture capital funds and the return the venture capital funds give, and it's crazy how few venture capital return capital and how many of them really make a profit. And he has that data. It'll be awesome to do it with private equity.
yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if it's available or not.
But with your knowledge, what percentage you think of the deals with private equity go wrong?
Probably half.
Half?
I guess. I don't know. I've never really looked at it. I've just heard the stories, but I've never looked at it in context of the others. So,
And what will be the
uh,
probability of the entrepreneur never get a dime after closing? As you said,
good
make sure you're happy
questions.
with the money in closing.
Good questions. But if it's not enough money at the closing table, then that's the one thing. The other thesis, or myth is you're taking in their money because you need their expertise, and there are things that you think that they can do for you in your business that you can't do for yourself. We need them because they are experienced managers. They have their quote unquote Harvard MBAs. They can bring in the KPIs or blah, 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 blah. There's pretty much nothing that they
Nothing.
can do. Maybe you have to go hire those people.
Yeah.
But if you hire them and you're still the boss, you could fire them if you don't like them or you don't like what they're doing. If you take their money and give them control of your company, you're done.
You're done.
And so really trying to get clarity anytime is what is it you're trying to accomplish? What are they bringing to the, if it's enough cash, it's enough cash. And if you're over it, you don't care, you don't care. But if it's not that, and you think they're bringing some expertise to the company. I have another friend in medical practice who just sold out to private equity. Why? These guys are amazing. They're going to help us do a roll up and expand. Hire a freaking proper CEO and proper management team for your medical practice and get out of their way. You can afford it and let them do the job.
Yeah. Right.
Instead of having Dr. Joe run your practice who's been running it for the last 10 years.
So let me close with last 5 minutes about learning. You and I, we've been a member of EO for many years. We continue to learn. We're always sharing ideas of books and the rest. Like, what's the right learning for an entrepreneur on the finance side? We always talk about the books on leadership and books on management and sales. Like, what are the most important books in finance that you need to read before you take the decision of it debt or equity or venture or what?
It's a good question. You have me stumped, and I need to think. I need to think about it.
There's
Shame on
no
me.
there's no good books that come to mind fast.
I mean, I think there's a book called The Growth Dilemma, but that's a little bit of a bias of my
That's
own.
one. All right, that's one.
I would refer you to on your curriculum on the Growth Institute, Daniel. We have a class called the Velocity Matrix.
Yeah,
I don't know. You'd have to look to see what it's exactly called or
yeah,
picking your growth lane.
yeah. But we have a course with you at the Growth Institute.
Yeah. And it takes people through thinking about going through the exercise of building three different growth scenarios and then understanding. So, what I try to encourage people to do is to track their investment spend, how much money they're spending to try grow and expand their business and get it to the next level. Whatever they spent last year, not because they had to keep the lights on, because they wanted to try innovate and grow. And let's say you put back in or you invested back into your business $1 million last year, and I'm just making up that number. It could just as easily be 100,000 or 10 million.
Okay.
And then, okay, so that's your budget for investing in your business. Then I want you to do is I want you to build three scenarios. Instead of investing $1 million next year, you're going to invest 3 million. Then a scenario for 2 million, and then a scenario for 1 million. What would you spend in those categories? And where do you think those investments would get your business? If I invest 3 million, I think I'll be a $20 million business next year. And if I invest 1 million, I think I'll be a $10 million business in 3 years. Then understand what it would cost to finance that, whether it's the 1 million, 2 million, or 3 million. Some of it might be debt, some of it might be equity. And then you've got the trade-offs between the different growth options, and you can decide what makes the most sense for you. So maybe if you invested $1 million, I'm making it up, you can do that through cash flow. Okay. And you'll be on track to be a $10 million business in 3 years, making $2 million of profit, and you're very happy. If you invested the $3 million business, you think you'll be on track to be a $20 million business in 3 years. But to do that, you have to take on an equity partner who's going to buy 30% of your company. I'm making up scenarios.
Yeah.
Then you can stare at that choice and make an educated decision about what makes the most sense for you.
That makes a lot of sense. So you said do the scenarios. If you don't finance it, you finance it with debt, you finance it with venture capital, see the size, and then you could compare apples to apples of the financial impact or impact in you.
Correct. But the struggle for most businesses is that most businesses in the world we live in struggle with projections and struggle with understanding the economic drivers that drive their business. And so that's a big area with fractional CFO or something you need help. You really need to understand the basic economic drivers of your business in order to make informed decisions. So when you build that velocity matrix, you're not just like spraying numbers on a wall and guessing.
By the way, your course at Growth is called How Big, How Fast, and How Much Risk You Want.
I love it. Same idea.
That's exactly the exercise. All right. I mean, it's always a pleasure. I've seen how many entrepreneurs you've helped finance. And what I like about you, you're no emotion. You're clear by the numbers. Makes sense by numbers, you do it. Doesn't make sense, don't do it. And
I see a little Inc. 5000 little award up there on your wall.
I have 4.
And you probably paid like $800 for every one of them.
Yeah. But hey, and this is important. I'm an entrepreneur from Mexico, and I've seen all the Inc. 5000 lists for many years. And I moved to the US and built a company. And the first year I was super, super proud. But yes,
It's
you're right. But after
it's
that, I've seen a lot of my colleagues that we appeared one year, and then the next year I talked to them and they were all going under or they're having a lot of financial problems. So
it's
for
not
us
that it's not that getting on the list isn't an accomplishment. It is,
itself,
and you can
yeah,
celebrate it. But celebrating that as the accolade of success,
yeah,
in my opinion, can drive people to irresponsible behavior.
I think you're right there. Okay,
So
and by the way, the other data that I figure out is what I learned is that very few get in the list, but very few get on the list 5 years. He said it's like 0.00001 of the companies that you're able to keep that growth and don't disappear. Because
right,
you grow so fast that you end up making mistakes and
correct,
that creates a lot of issue, and then the company ends up going under or gets into financial trouble, and then it's never back on the list.
exactly.
Right, amigo, it's
Thank you,
always a
my
pleasure.
friend.
Thank you. Hey, if they want to look for you, where do they want to learn from you?
Multifunding.com or my personal daily blog is at amisites.com.
AmiSites.com. By the way, that's a really, really, really good newsletter. I get it every day. And Ami just shares some of his thinking, case studies, all around financing of your company. Very, very cool. Ami,
It's supposed to
thank
be
you.
a 30-second read every day.
Every day. That's correct. I said you're down to the bone. Your numbers and the facts. You don't play big things or make big stories. That's what I love about you. Thank you for always being so direct. Thank you, amigo.
Thank you so much. Hope to see you soon, buddy. Thanks. Take care. Bye bye.
You too.